Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Boston Bowling. I'm your host, Gabby Hurlbut. It's an exciting time of year. The holidays are coming up, Christmas, New Year's, everyone's lights are up, decorations, people have Christmas trees. It's super exciting. There's Christmas music playing in pretty much every store I go into, so that's pretty exciting as well. We always love this time of year. A lot of excitement. Football getting into crunch time, so that's pretty fun. Um, Hockey and basketball are really well into their seasons. And so it's very, very exciting to be a sports fan right now and just being out there in general. I mean, I hope everyone is able to stay healthy and, get to spend some holidays with friends and family, because that time we definitely shouldn't take for granted of seeing our friends and family. So I'm definitely looking forward to spending time with mine. I hope everyone's on top of their Christmas shopping because it's right around the corner. And so, it's kind of crept up on us this year. I feel like the Christmas season in general really flew by this year. And the whole month of December, really, come to think of it, I feel like December really just hit. And now all of a sudden it's almost Christmas. That's just crazy to me. And it's almost 2022. I feel like 2021 just flew by. It's really honestly crazy to me. And I don't understand it. But it is what it is. We're getting there. We're almost at 2022. So welcome back to the show, everybody. Hope you're all having a great start to the week. As you guys notice, there's something a little bit different about this episode today. Yeah, I don't have a guest. Yeah, so I wanted to try something new this week, in honor of, the 1 year anniversary of Boston Mauling, which actually officially launched around this date last year. So I wanted to kind of do a little, synopsis of the year that Boston Mauling has had, and kind of give my thoughts on all things going on in the Boston sports community right now. So, I started Boston Mauling back in December of 2020 during COVID. Been invited to be a guest on other podcasts. Shout out to Courtney Harden for being the first one to have me on his podcast. Really, really enjoyed it. Thought it was something that I might want to do. So I, kind of got some equipment for it. And, little Gabby decides to start a Boston sports podcast because, what else would I have a podcast about? It's my passion. It's what I love talking about. I decided to start the show to really just, be able to have fun conversations with people and talk about the teams that I love to watch every week, and it's honestly been a crazy year. It's been a really exciting year. The show has exceeded so many expectations in terms of followers and listeners, and I'm just overwhelmed by the amount of support that the show has gotten, and other countries, the show being really popular and just continuing to grow. And just, I'm really honored at just everybody for constantly tuning in every week, reaching out, saying how much they enjoy the show. To all of my guests, I've had, a lot of really, really good guests on the show. I've been really happy with the people I've had on. Big shout out to all of them. I wish I could shout out each one individually, but then I think we'd, kind of be here all night. But my guests are always so passionate week in and week out. We've had really good conversations, and I just really appreciate everyone who's contributed to this show over the last year. And I really am excited for the future. I'm excited to see where this goes. I have some great guests locked up, for the coming weeks. And so I'm really looking forward to what 2022 is going to bring for Boston Bowling. And, shout out to my friends and family for encouraging me to do this, because not everyone can start a podcast. It's a hard thing to do. You have to really know, you have to be able to find your craft. And one of the things I will say, and advice that I want to give to anybody out there who's listening and might be interested in starting a podcast, is believe in yourself. That's the most important thing. Believe in yourself and what you can do. Have confidence. Know that, you know your stuff, and really find your tone and your style. I mean, when this show started, I had no idea how it was going to do. I went into it really scared, and I was like, what if people hate it? What if people find my voice too annoying? What if people, don't like the content I'm talking about? What if the guests are boring? What if, we don't have enough to talk about to fill an hour-long show? And all of those thoughts will go through your head. But at the end of the day, it's your show, and the people who like it will listen no matter what happens. And you have to trust that, the more confidence that you have in yourself, the more people will want to listen to you. And that's what I've realized over the last year is the more confident that I've been in myself and what I'm talking about on the show, the more people are going to want to tune in and really invest and engage and, be supportive and post their comments on the live stream and, leave reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, or, download the show on any platform, or subscribe to the YouTube channel, and or like the Facebook page, and those, the little number in the corner with, you can see how many people are watching the show live. Just when I see that number go up, and just how much the show has really developed and grown, I'm just so completely honored and blessed, and words can't really even describe the feeling that I have right now, looking back on all of this a year later at the 1 year anniversary of the show. And really, never did I think that I was going to be sitting here now. To be honest with you, I thought the show wouldn't last more than a few months, because I thought that it just wouldn't draw enough interest. And, that, I wouldn't believe in myself enough, or that something would happen, and that, the show just wouldn't be good. People wouldn't like it. And so I would stop doing it. But here I am a year later, still developing followers, still having people come to me on Twitter and say, I really, really like your show, and I really like your opinions on and your takes on everything going on in sports. I love how knowledgeable you are about different sports and different teams and different athletes. And that type of stuff is really heartwarming to me. I mean, just, hearing from people like that, and coming from the perspective of me, who, has been around the sports industry for a few years now, and has always been just kind of prejudged because of being a female in sports. It's not an easy thing to do. It's definitely, I will say, you get challenged. You have people definitely challenging your thoughts on things a little bit extra, or questioning things that you might be talking about. And that's just part of the game. That's just how the game goes. But, you have to have the confidence in yourself to really push that to the side, and really just say, look, I know what I'm talking about, and I'm here with a purpose, and I'm here to deliver content about something I am passionate about. And if you can do that, then you can succeed. And, trust me, I mean, Twitter's a fun place, but it also could not be sometimes. I mean, I've had some great interactions on Twitter. I've met so many cool people who support my content, and, really will tweet at me just to ask for my advice on something. Like, they'll be like, look, who should I start in fantasy this week? Or, like, what's your score prediction for this Celtics Bucks game tonight? Or just anything that really is, my opinion on things, and they value that. They want to hear my opinion. And, and then on the other side of it, you'll get the people who are like, well, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, and, they'll say things like, you're a female, and it happens still, unfortunately. And, it's just something that you have to push through. And it's something that you have to just ignore, because honestly, the people who do that type of thing, I've realized, are the people who are jealous that they're not in your position, and that they're not as successful as you. And so at the end of the day, folks, I'm really just saying, if you want to do something, just do it. And who cares what people think? If they don't like it, then that's their problem. But I promise you, for the people who don't like it, there's 1,000 times more people who do. And so those are the people that you have to focus on. Those are the people that you want to deliver the best content to every week. Those are the people that when I'm, designing my episodes, or when I'm producing my show, and when I'm, scheduling guests, those are the people that I think about, and I'm like, I want to make these people proud this week. I want to make these people be really engaged in my show, so that they continue to come back. And then it really gets solidified when you have people saying, like, people you don't know, that you haven't talked to, saying, like, I love listening to your podcast on my drive home from work. Those are the types of things that's what makes this all worth it. That's what makes this whole experience worth it. And you people who listen to the show every week are the reason why I'm still here doing this a year later, and the reason why I'm able to sit back here and reflect on all of the good times I've had with this show, and realize, life is too short to not try what you want to do. And that's what I realized. And starting this podcast has really, really been a huge way for me to be able to open up and voice my opinions on different things. And because everybody's opinions deserve to be heard, and not everybody has to agree with them all, but, having knowledgeable conversations just makes it more fun. And, some of my favorite moments on this show were, one episode where I had, three people on as guests. It was a fan perspective episode, and everybody got to give their opinions on different things going on in sports. And it was a little bit of a different kind of episode because I had never really done that before. It's usually just me and a one-on-one guest, but that was such a cool episode, and people really tuned in, and they really, really enjoyed that episode. And, another experience I had, like another good memory I had from this show was, I when I brought on college students, I mean, because a lot of the people I bring on are, people in the media, or people who, are past athletes, people who are associated with one of the major Boston sports teams. But being able to bring on college students who are up and coming, and maybe they're athletes, or maybe they're covering sports teams for their school, that's another thing I really like about this show, because it allows me to expand the audience to younger people, And so I could name so many memories. There's definitely things from each episode I've had on this show that I can point out, but that would take way too much time. But in general, what I'm really trying to say here, people, is thank you to all of you for, being here the last year. Thank you, everyone, for supporting me this last year. Thank you to everyone for really, listening and tuning in every week and helping me to build that confidence to continue to do this, because without you, I really wouldn't be able to. And, this is year one down of this show, but I promise you there's so much more to come. I mean, constantly week to week, I'm working hard to bring a new episode to you all. And I'm sending this to everyone right now. I mean, all of my supporters. I mean, I love you all so much, and it's this show would not be possible without any of you. And I am eternally grateful, and I really can't thank you enough. And, talking about Boston sports makes me happy. And there's a lot of exciting things going on in Boston sports. I mean, I'm going to start with the Patriots. I mean, there's not really enough that can be said about the Patriots right now. Coming into this season, they were very much a team that people thought, with their coaching, they maybe could squeeze into a wild card spot, barely, be one of those average, like maybe a little above average teams this year, because there was a lot of change. They brought in some new players. They had a rookie quarterback, and there were a lot of question marks. And, my original prediction before the season started was that the Patriots would go 11-6 this year, make the playoffs, but not win the division. I thought Buffalo was going to win the division, but I thought the Patriots would win 11 games. It's looking like they're heading on that track. There's only a few more games left, but they only need 2 more wins to get there, because they're 9-4 right now, riding a 7-game win streak going into Saturday night's game against the Colts. And they're right on track to win the division. I mean, they had a huge win on Monday Night Football against the Bills a couple weeks ago. Very, very smart, well-executed game. I mean, I know that the fact that, Mac only made 3 passes the entire game, literally, was kind of bothersome to some people. But at the end of the day, Belichick's mindset is whatever helps us win the game. And honestly, that was a really, really good chance to show us that the Patriots really do have a run game, and they have some good players over there, like, that they can really utilize going forward. And, Ramondre Stevenson, who's up and coming, I think is going to be a really, really important asset to this team. And it's going to be interesting to see him get utilized on Saturday too. And because, the Colts are very much a team whose run defense over the years has typically been pretty good, but has been struggling lately. So it'll be interesting to see if Belichick uses a similar approach and tries to produce a run-heavy offense again, knowing that the Colts' run defense is struggling. They are going to have to stop the Patriots' run if they want to win that game. That's going to be one of the biggest things for the Colts going into this game. And with the Patriots, I mean, obviously, like, they'll be pretty run-heavy, I would assume. But I do think that we see Mac Jones throw the ball more. I don't think he's going to be as conservative as he was against Buffalo, knowing how big of a game that was. But, they have a chance to clinch the division this weekend. If they beat the Colts and the Bills lose and the Dolphins beat the Jets, then the Patriots clinch the division this weekend. So that's pretty cool. So that's why, we don't want to take our foot off the gas too much here. But having that huge win on the road against Buffalo will absolutely give them some confidence going into this game. That I am definitely sure of. And I think Belichick's going to come in, guns blazing with a plan. And some of the things I really, really liked about this Patriots team this year. One, Mac Jones. I mean, the kid, look what he's doing. I mean, he's producing really, really good numbers this year offensively. And, he's definitely on pace for rookie of the year if the Patriots, make a deep playoff run. I mean, obviously Jamar Chase is up there too, and he's been having a phenomenal season. But, Mac Jones came into a system that we knew was very good for him. We knew coming from Alabama that the Patriots would be a really good organization for him to be in. And he kind of fits right in, he fits in with the Patriots system and their offense. And his attitude is another big thing that I really like about him being on this Patriots team. He works extremely hard. He's a good leader. His football IQ is very, very high. He's very alert to what's happening on the field, and he knows how to make smart on-field decisions. And that's been such a huge difference from when Cam Newton was a starter. And, granted, I loved Cam's leadership. I loved how he was experienced and, he could be a good locker room guy, but he was not the answer at quarterback. And, Bill took a chance this year, started a rookie quarterback, and look where we are now. And Max come so far since week 1, and I think it's only going to get better from here. And, I think the Patriots obviously had some struggles defensively at the beginning of the season, but the defense over the last few weeks has gotten significantly better. And, I think there's some key opponents on defense that have really, really contributed and really helped them win the games this year, I always say this, but Mr. Interception, JC Jackson, always coming in clutch. And it's these players that, you love because they're in a Patriots uniform, but that you didn't expect to make as much of an impact as they are. And that's what I think is pretty cool, about this team that I really like is just everybody's contributing, both on offense and on defense. Everybody's contributing. Nick Folk is having a fantastic season, kicking wise. And so I think there's just a lot of pieces that they're putting together. And if this team can keep up this momentum down the stretch, they could be a tough team in the playoffs because we all know Bill's coaching and we all know, not to really challenge Bill in the postseason because we know where his teams have gotten in the playoffs before. And, they're saying the most likely scenario right now is a Patriots Bucks Super Bowl, which, we know that would be cool. But I don't want to get people's hopes up yet in case it doesn't happen because, the NFC is also tough. I mean, the Packers are up there, the Cardinals, the Rams. Obviously, Tampa Bay is good. But those teams, you have to watch out for those teams. And then, the AFC has some great teams too. Kansas City's up there, the Bills, the Titans, this Colts team that they're playing this weekend. There's good teams over there, the Ravens. And so I think the key thing for the Patriots now is, trying to focus on securing that number 1 seed. They are currently tied with 2 other teams right now for the overall number 1 seed. And so I think for them, what's really needed now is, focus on winning the division. But if they can get those games to go through Foxborough, that's going to be huge for Mac and his confidence, I think, because it's going to be really, really tough for the Patriots to go on the road in the postseason for all those games when there's so much pressure already in a postseason game. And so I think it would be pretty cool if they could play a lot of those games at home. But I think, everything needs to continue to run smoothly. I think the offense has really, really improved significantly. I think everyone's starting to be on the same page with Mac. And, overall, have they had some injuries? Sure, yeah. But, they've been pretty healthy overall. You have Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry have been playing well. Damian Harris has been having a pretty good season. I think Mac has players here that can really, really contribute and help out because of all the weapons they acquired in the offseason. And, one of the biggest things about the Patriots that I see right now is I definitely do see a team that's capable of making a deep playoff run. I mean, a lot of people will doubt that and doubt me on that, but I do think that if they continue to play football the way they are now, that's going to be a tough team to beat. I mean, look at them when they played against the Cowboys and the Bucks. That was before they even really started to improve. And they almost won both of those games. Now, looking back now, if this Patriots team of today went and played that same Cowboys team, don't you think they might have won the game? I mean, I absolutely do. It went to overtime. It took literally overtime for them to lose that game. So I absolutely do think that if they went back and played that Cowboys team today, I'm pretty confident in saying that I think the Patriots win that game because they've just made so many improvements after the first few weeks of the season. And that's what Belichick's best at. He's best at making adjustments. He sees what's going on and he fixes it. And, that's the thing about this team that I think makes them so special. Their chemistry, they all seem to love to play together, and that leadership and just the way that Bill goes about his approach every single game and has them prepared every game. And yeah, are the Colts tough? Yeah, I mean, that's going to be a tough game on Saturday. That is not just an easy win. This is a game that they really have to play good football if they want to win. But, like I said, I think that if they utilize their run game a lot, they could win the game because the Colts run defense has absolutely been struggling. So it'll be interesting to see the approach that he takes on Saturday night in that game. But if they can win that game, I mean, that's going to be huge because then you're really only looking at a few more games left after that, one against Buffalo again. But if they can win this weekend against the Colts, that's going to make the chances a lot more likely that they can actually close out the division and win the division. And that to me, I think is pretty cool. And so I think there's a lot of talent on this team. I think that their ceiling is very, very high. And it's exciting that, this team is only going up from here. Like, this is Mac Jones's rookie season, people. And this is what he's doing. And he has so much more potential, so much more room for growth. And he's already taking them to the playoffs in his first season. So that's what I am really excited about. All the other players, in press conferences and interviews have, nothing but high praises and good things to say about Mac. And I think that that's a really, really cool thing to see because if they enjoy playing with him on the field, that creates for a lot more team success. I mean, and he has the, the team around him to be able to succeed here. I mean, you look at quarterbacks like Justin Fields, for example, or Zach Wilson, and it's like, will they be able to reach their ceiling if they don't go to another team? Probably not. I mean, you're looking at quarterbacks on those teams who don't really have the teams around them to be able to succeed. So you can't really see what their potential is right now because they're not really set up for that success. And so you have to wonder if, down the road, if they go to another team, can they reach their ceiling? And that's why, Mac Jones, I think, ended up in the best scenario he could have ended up in. Do I think he would have been putting up these types of numbers anywhere else? Absolutely not. 100% not. He definitely would not be thriving the way that he is if he wasn't in New England. And he's doing that because he's a perfect fit for the puzzle that is the New England Patriots. And I think that that's why he's been so good and he's been so solid and, and the team has been really good. And it's a momentum thing, hopefully coming out of the bye week, they don't lose that momentum that they had going on the win streak. I mean, it's a Saturday night game. The Patriots are 8-0 in Saturday games since 2000. So that's, that's a pretty big deal. That's, I like their chances there, but it's going to be a tough game. I mean, I think it's a close game. I think we see a game that, it comes down to maybe one possession. That's kind of what I'm feeling. I think it's going to be a competitive game. I think both teams are going to be bringing it hard because both teams need this win. It's an important game for both teams. So it's definitely not going to be easy, but it'll be, I think the Patriots can win it as long as they don't make stupid mistakes, which is a problem they were running into at the beginning of the season. And we've seen a little bit more of lately still, dropping passes or turning the ball over or just making stupid mistakes that can easily be avoided. If they can keep cutting all of that out, they have a very, very good chance. And I feel pretty confident in saying that I think they can win this game. And it's just a matter of, they need to play good football from start to finish and not make those types of mistakes and, really, really be attentive to what's going on the field. Because if they can do that, then I think they can win this game. I think, it's been kind of, it's been an interesting season for the Colts. I mean, they're a good team, but I think the Patriots can really take advantage of, their struggles lately, especially on defense. So I think it's going to be an interesting game. I think it'll be fun. I think if I could describe the 2021 Patriots in one word, I would say, I would use a couple different ones, but one of the biggest things that pops out to me is resilient. Because I think, when the team was 2-4 to start the season, a lot of people wrote them off and said, oh, the Patriots season is over. Well, no, it's not over because it's only 6 games into the season of a 17-game season. So I'm not sure why, you think the season's over right now. And so those people, who said that obviously aren't saying that anymore now. But I think that resiliency of knowing we want to surprise people and we want to win games, I think has helped them a lot this season. And, they've had some really dominant wins, like against the Browns, who are not a bad team at all. I mean, that was a really good win against a good team. I mean, beating the Bills, that was a close game, but that's still a good win because the Bills are a really, really solid team. And they've had one bad loss against the Saints, which, that we're willing to forgive them for that. Every team is allowed to have one bad game. It happens to everyone. It's football. They're not going to play perfect football every week. But overall, they've been pretty consistent. They've had good wins. That win against the Chargers, that was really impressive. I'm looking at that game as one of the biggest ones that, could be the reason that they end up in the playoffs this year, because the Chargers are tough. I mean, they're right up there with the Chiefs, in their division. So that's another impressive one that I'm looking at. And so overall, I think this team is in good shape. I think that they obviously still have work to do if they want to go all the way this year, but I do think they can make some serious noise in the playoffs as long as everybody stays healthy and everybody can contribute and be there for each other and really contribute to what's been being put together this year, because this is a beautiful product that they've been putting together. So I'm excited for Saturday's game. I feel pretty confident in the team and I like what I'm seeing. So we'll see what happens there. I'm really excited about it. But, it's football. It's unpredictable. You never know what's going to happen. So let's just hope that, people stay healthy and we can keep winning games. That's all I can really say about that. But, I want to move on to a team that's a little more frustrating right now, which is the Celtics, because, man, this team, the inconsistency, for one, the lack of defense, for two, the lack of shooting anything but threes, for three. And granted, these are exaggerations. I mean, they'll drive to the paint sometimes and they'll score, but they don't do it enough, for three. And the coaching rotations is four. I think those are the four biggest things that are wrong with the Celtics right now. All of these people saying that they should try to trade the Jays, I hardcore disagree, or at least trading one of the Jays. I do not agree with that at all. I think the Jays are the glue that hold the team together, and the team needs to be built around them, is the bottom line of what I'm trying to say here. You need to keep those two together because they are young players that, still haven't even reached their full potential yet, which is crazy. And you still have Tatum putting up 40 points a game. You know what I mean? Like he did against the Bucks. And it's those two are your glue. Those two are the two guys that I see as the guys that are going to lead you to a championship. So as far as I'm concerned, everybody else pretty much is movable except those two. I think you can come up with a trade package, a reasonable trade package that includes anybody else on this team besides Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. I think those two are an absolute no. You need to keep those two on the team because they are going to be the two guys that, do bring you to a championship. I mean, a lot of people, have been shitting on Ime and his coaching. I get it, guys. I get it. Like, he's a first-year coach. We had to expect that there was going to be some frustration. We had to expect that, he had to get acclimated and get used to working with this group of guys and, getting used to being in that role. And, I think when Brad Stevens brought him on, he saw something in him. He knew that, he could be a good guy to work with these players. But, man, some of these rotations, I mean, he needs to just kind of evaluate the way that some of these guys are being utilized. I think is the best way for me to word it. I mean, I love Al Horford being back. I think he's been, obviously a great addition to the team with not only his on the court, but also off the court with the fact that he's familiar with Boston. He's been here before. He's a good leader, and they need somebody like him with his veteran presence in the locker room. Because as we know, the Celtics are a pretty young team. So having somebody like that is really, really helpful. And it seems to be really working out with him so far, and I really like that they brought him back on. Grant Williams is really starting to find his stride. Like, he's starting to show some signs of improvement, which I really, really like. Obviously, you have the Jays, and having Jaylen Brown back for last night's game, I have to say, was really, really nice. I mean, it's a noticeable difference when he's not on the court. And that goes back to my original point of how important he is to the team and why he should be untouchable. Because it's like night and day. Like, I mean, we noticed it. We noticed it in last night's game against the Bucks. And that was arguably the best overall basketball I've seen from them this season. That was a very complete overall team win. They were playing good defense. They were moving the ball around well on offense. They were varying their shots. They were getting rebounds. They had energy out there. And this is a good Bucks team. I mean, this is the defending champs. Like, we're not talking, like a team that is towards the bottom of the division or anything like that. You know what I mean? Like, this is a very good Eastern Conference basketball team. And A lot of they still have a lot of their players still from that championship run. So that was a very, very good overall team win. And it's games like that give me hope that maybe they'll turn things around. But then, it's a day-to-day thing because then they'll go into the next game, Friday, and hopefully you just hope that they don't get crushed like they did in the game against the Suns last weekend, for example. So it's like you think back to certain games and you're like, wow, like what is this team? You know what I mean? And then you look at games like last night and it's like, yeah, like when they're playing good basketball, they can compete with these teams, but I still think some players don't really know exactly what their role is on this team. I think players like Peyton Pritchard, who, yeah, hasn't been getting a ton of playing time. I don't think he's part of the future for this team. So I think he's somebody you could consider packaging into a trade. I think, Freedom, love the guy. For sure, love the guy. And when he's on the court, he contributes, but he's another piece that I could see maybe being considered to be moved. Schroeder gets a lot of hate on social media. I mean, people on Twitter bash this guy, and it's like, yeah, I get it. Like, he makes some stupid mistakes offensively. We've seen it. He turns the ball over a lot. But, he's been very, very good on defense. And when he's on point, he's making really good shots. And that's actually making a difference to this team. So I'm not like, oh, yeah, like I'm in love with Dennis Schroeder. However, I don't agree with the people on social media who bash him all the time and think that he doesn't do anything useful for this team. Because when he's on the court and he's playing well, like he does make a difference. And so he's another player that, we weren't sure how that was going to go with him because with his history and everything and, in big games, not coming through and not being the guy that, can perform at the level he needs to in important games. So we were all skeptical bringing him in. I mean, obviously I can't speak for everybody, but I can definitely speak for the other people I saw on social media who were saying similar things. I mean, nobody knew what to expect from him, but I think the more time he has with this team, we might start to see, more responsibility put on him. And Josh Richardson, I mean, he's been a really pleasant surprise. Like when he was originally brought in, I was like, yeah, like, well, this should be interesting. Like, we'll see how this goes, with him. But he's made such a difference as well. I mean, this guy, he's just been really good for this team. And that's like, these are the types of situations where I'm talking about it. And I'm like, yeah, like this is why we need to give these guys a chance because, there's so many players on this team that might just need more time, honestly. And, it's going to be interesting to see what this roster looks like after the trade deadline. And that's obviously going to depend on how they continue to play and where they're at record wise by the trade deadline. But, I'm looking at players like Marcus Smart and, granted, I love Marcus. Like, don't get me wrong here. I love Marcus Smart. But if he has to go, I wouldn't be super upset about it. I mean, if they bring in another player who can help kind of, push them over the top and maybe get them over that hump, and that includes trading Marcus Smart, which granted, it probably would include him if they wanted to get a decent player of any kind that is, a more high caliber player that they can really use if they want to go for a championship run, which won't happen this year. I'm just making that clear. I do not think the Celtics are going to, be a deep threat later on in the season. Obviously, you never know. Injuries are a factor with every team and, things could happen. Teams could get on cold streaks and they could get really hot. So granted, obviously you don't rule out anything, but I don't see this team as a team that can, make a deep playoff run this year. Like, can they squeeze into the playoffs? Sure, maybe. I mean, they need to play more consistent basketball, though, if they want to do that. But then at the trade deadline, it's really all going to depend where they're at. And it'll be interesting to see who gets moved and continues to get moved and what happens here. But overall, with them, one of the things I will say to kind of circle back on all of this is just they need to be more aggressive with driving to the paint. That's been an issue all season, and it continues to be a problem. For some reason, they do not want to shoot the basketball from inside the paint. It's like a 3 or bust all the time. And it's like, man, dude, like you can pass the ball around a little bit. You don't have to take the first shot that you get a look on. Like, geez, obviously, if it's a wide open look, yeah, take it. But I've seen them take some terrible threes. And it's like, well, why did you have to do that? Like, there's no reason to rush up a three when you can dribble the ball around a little bit, look for somebody who's open, and take a good shot. That's what honestly the most frustrating thing to me this year. Like they can take so many more decent shots than they're taking. And, I think obviously having the big guys like Al, and Freedom, like that's made a difference in terms of rebounding. But I mean, man, like they can take so many more different shots than they're taking. And it's like, we saw it. When they played the Bucks last night, we saw it. They have the capability to do it. And that when they're patient, they can take really good shots. And honestly, last night was the most fun I've had watching a Celtics game all season. I mean, I'm not even kidding. I'm really not even kidding when I say that, because that was a team that looked like they wanted to be out there. They were working really hard. And I think, granted, Jalen coming back might have fueled a fire in them too, because they were excited to have him back. But I mean, seriously, like, that was a fun Celtics team to watch. And it's like, you look at games like that and it's like, they need to have more games like this. They need to play like this more. And hopefully that game kind of sparks some momentum, as they continue to progress through the season. And granted, there's still a lot of season left, but I'm looking at teams like the Nets, even the Bucks, which is why this was an impressive win, the Heat, I'm naming all these teams, the Knicks, I'm naming all the teams in the East. And I mean, granted, like, obviously, teams struggle, like the Bulls, they're another team. Like, you list teams that, like, the Lakers, Lakers have been struggling, but, I'm not ruling them out because they have AD and LeBron. And, I know there's talks about them trading Russell Westbrook. Like, where would he go? That could be interesting. Like, do we think trading Russell Westbrook would make them worse or better? That's what I want to know. Like, is their big three experiment over? Do they feel like they can't win another championship with Russell Westbrook? And honestly, that's kind of what I feared about them. Is obviously the Lakers losing is good news to me, because I don't like Lakers. But when they brought on Russell Westbrook, I was like, is that going to work with AD and LeBron and their personalities? And is he going to be able to be that third guy? And obviously the Lakers don't really think so. I mean, they're open to talks about trading him. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I mean, there's still so many moves that can be made on so many different teams. I mean, the Warriors, they've been phenomenal this year. Like, you know what I mean? And the fact that they've been doing it without Clay is pretty crazy too. And it's like, you think about it and it's like, yeah, like, how is this team doing what they're doing? And I mean, Steph Curry, congrats to him, broke the all-time 3-point record last night. The dude is nasty at hitting threes. So yeah, I know it'd be nice to have him on the Celtics for that reason too. I was thinking that as well. But no, the Warriors have been phenomenal. Suns are another team, that are up there that are going to be good. So overall, there's a lot of good teams in basketball, and the Celtics just do not look like some of those other teams. They just do not look like they have it as much as a lot of those teams do. And obviously there's still time to fix that. I just don't really see that happening this year. I think they still need to make more moves, but absolutely do not trade one of the Jays. That to me would be the worst decision I think they could make, because I still don't see that. Even if they trade one of them, I don't see the return being good enough to have made the trade worth it, I will say. So that's what I want them to avoid. But overall, I'm trying to have faith and patience with Ime, but man, the guy needs to like manage his in-game decisions sometimes. I question, and Romeo Langford, I forgot to mention him, but he's been really good too. Like, I mean, he's making an impact, and that's the biggest thing that I will say that is good about the Celtics this year is the bench is producing. When the bench produces, that's when you realize, yeah, this team really did try to get some more depth, because that was always an issue for them. They had a fantastic starting five. They just didn't have a bench. And now the bench is starting to perform. You have players like, Langford and Schroeder and Josh Richardson coming off the bench. And it's like, yeah, they're actually producing, and it's like, that's nice to see from this team. And just, they need to just play offense, smart basketball. Don't make stupid passes and turning the ball over, which they were doing a lot of last week and really all season, by the way. Stupid turnovers that cost them games. Even last night against the Bucks. I mean, that second quarter was not good at all. That was a bad quarter of basketball for the Celtics. Too many turnovers. They kept missing shots. Everything just looked kind of like, the Celtics of old that we've seen all season. And luckily they turned it around in the second half. But like, I mean, it's the stupid turnovers. It's the taking careless shots. Like, just clean some stuff up. And then, games will be more fun to watch. That's really what I have to say about that. I mean, I think, I think they're in good hands. I think with Brad Stevens in the role that he's in now, being able to make all those decisions about, who's in a Celtics uniform and who's not, and, the coaching decisions and things like that. I think that puts them in good hands. I think they're on the right track, but they still have a ways to go. So Celtics fans, be patient. Banner 18 is coming. It's just not right now. So now, yeah, I mean, on to the Bruins. I mean, their season's been a little up and down. Granted, they've had some injuries, COVID stuff as well. Brad Marchand is on the COVID list now, and he had been suspended for a couple games and now came back and is now on the COVID list. So that guy's kind of been, all over the place. I think, there's been some interesting decisions there too. I mean, even the other night, they didn't have Marchand was scheduled to go last in the shootout, and I was a little confused by that too. Like, why would you have Charlie Coyle go first before him in the shootout? And as a result, they lost that game in the shootout. So there's things like that, with decisions that were made there. But overall, I mean, their defense has been a huge problem this year. They need to acquire one or two defenders, like solid defenders, before or at the trade deadline this year, because that defense has been an absolute mess. And, obviously the Bruins, I mean, they had a rough game. They had a rough game last night. They really did. Against when they were, when they were every quarter really. I mean, it really started in the first quarter against Vegas, or the first period rather against Vegas, and then everything kind of went downhill from there. And so I kind of knew after the first period that game was a wash. And I like Vegas and all. I mean, they're a team I rooted for last year after the Bruins got eliminated from the Stanley Cup playoffs, but that game was just a mess. And I mean, Swayman did not have a lot go his way in that game. I mean, a lot of rebounds weren't going his way, and it was bound to happen. I mean, he's been really good this season, so I'm not going to sit here and complain about him and say he was the issue, because, I mean, yeah, like, he did not have a good game last night. A lot wasn't going his way. And so, that from that perspective, it was frustrating to see. But overall, it's really been more the defense this year that's been the issue, more so than the goaltending. I mean, I like Swayman a lot. I think he's the future of this team, but I also like what I've seen from Ullmark. And so that's why that whole goalie situation, because when they switch off, I mean, like, they both have good games. They both have been a crucial part to the wins the Bruins have had this year. So I really like things I've seen from both of them. I just think last night was, Swayman, things were just not going his way. And, he still does struggle with those rebounds in general. He has some bad rebounds and it ends up costing them goals sometimes too. But overall, I think they could use another goal scorer too. I think that's another big thing that they could use. But overall, I think the Bruins are, I don't want to say well on their way, because I think they're even past that. I think they really are like this team that's like on the cusp of like being a really, really good contending championship team, but there's still some pieces missing, and they cannot go in with this defense. That's not going to work. I think that, they need to add somebody. But overall, I think, obviously, like, I love Bruce Cassidy, and I think the Bruins are running out of time with this core. Some of these guys are not going to be here much longer. And so the time is now really to try to win a championship, or it might not happen until after a full rebuild happens. And, granted, the Bruins kind of were in rebuilding mode, I guess. Like, I don't really want to call it that, because they still had, their veteran players that have been in the playoffs before with them, like went to the Stanley Cup with them, a couple years ago and all that. And so it's, you have these experienced players, but you also have a lot of young players that are trying to still find their footing and find their way with this team. So that's another big thing to keep in mind too, is that, yes, you have the veteran talent and you are running out of time with them, but it's a good time to really see which of these young players are part of the future, because they are going to start really, really thinking about the future soon. I mean, sooner rather than later. And so that's why it really is, the time is now. And, this team, if they can fix a couple things, they have the ability to be really, really good. I mean, like, we've seen them have really good wins this year. And I think, I have much higher hopes for them than I do the Celtics, who I kept saying last night for some reason. Like, I don't know why. Like, I'm like a day off, like, with everything right now, really, with these games and all that. But, like, so Monday night when the Celtics played, and then last night when the Bruins played. But yeah, I mean, the Bruins are definitely, they need to like attack the puck a little bit more. I mean, they're losing a lot of puck battles, and that's been an issue. They're turning the puck over unnecessarily sometimes. They need to capitalize and take advantage of certain situations. I mean, they've been getting better in the power play, scoring some goals there, but overall, it's they need to take advantage, of penalties and things like that and turnovers, which they haven't really been doing a whole lot of. And that's one of the biggest things about them that I wanted to address is, just be aggressive, like win those puck battles and, really, really get there and play with urgency. Just play with a sense of urgency because I look at this hockey team and it's like, yeah, you have the potential to be so good. You just have to play like that. And I think, I think the goalies have been a big part of their success this year. And I'm not going to bash Swayman for his performance last night, really, because yeah, it was a bummer, but like everybody has those types of games. And we all know he's had a fantastic season. So this was just kind of bound to happen at some point. But obviously we didn't want it to be a loss like that. But that game was over after the first period in all reality. There was no chance the Bruins were coming back in that one. I mean, yeah, I know they scored in the first 23 seconds of the third period last night, but that was just a literally, of course, little me like watching the game was wishful thinking, like, they can come back, like they're gonna come back now, like Patrice Bergeron like started the little comeback, but they were down 3 goals still. It wasn't gonna happen, but just I like to be positive, but they're a good hockey team. I mean, they definitely have a chance. They just some of the things that they do that are so preventable, and that's the thing that's super frustrating. Like, just be aggressive, and when they are aggressive, which they are a lot of times, they're good and they're fun to watch. And they just mainly need to address the defense. That's the biggest hole I'd say right now. And I think in terms of them and looking ahead to the rest of the season, I think they'll definitely be a playoff team. I don't think that they're not going to be a playoff team. They're not going to have games like last night every night. I mean, like they're a solid team. I think they'll be a playoff team again. But the question is, will they have enough to be able to beat some of these teams? And I mean, Tampa Bay is still right there, won the last 2 years in a row, and they're still looking like a scary team. Do I think that they three-peat and they win it all again? Absolutely not. But, they're still up there, and there's good teams. There's good hockey teams. The Rangers, I mean, they're supposed to be in rebuild mode. And I mean, like, what the heck? You know what I mean? Like, they've been having a really, really solid season. I don't think that they keep up this pace all season. I think they're just playing at an abnormal pace right now of hockey. So I don't think that continues the rest of the season. But I do think that they're good. And I think that they're a team that we all need to watch out for and need to be talked about because they're supposed to be rebuilding, but they have this young core of players now that are their future that are going to make them good for a long time. I think that they're not going to win the cup this year, but I think they're maybe a couple years away. But man, are they a good team. That's the type of team that I really would be wary of because if they continue to click and they get hot right when it's going into the postseason, I could see them being a serious threat. I think, they're a young team, so experience is part of it, but I think they're tough. And I don't think a lot of people expected them to be as good as they are right now. And I mean, obviously we knew that, they were on their way last year. So I didn't think they'd be a bad team this year, but this pace that they're going at right now, they're not going to be able to keep up with that all season, but they definitely, I think, will still be a good enough team to go to the playoffs this year. So, I could kind of rattle off about other teams too, but at the end of the day, this is a Boston sports podcast. And so this is about the Bruins really, but in reality, the Bruins stack up to those other teams. I'd say yes and no. I think they have the ability to, and I think they can. They just have a couple holes they need to fix, and I think it's something that they will fix. And, Taylor Hall, though, I want to talk about him for a second because I don't know what's been going on with him really lately. He's been pretty quiet. And, I have to wonder if there's something going on with him because, I'm trying to give him some time. Maybe he's just struggling right now. But that's been detrimental to this team, too, I'd say, because when he's on and he's playing his best hockey, that really, really makes a difference to this team. And, he's just been quiet for Taylor Hall, and it's that's definitely something to keep an eye on, I'd say, going forward. Just kind of seeing, if that improves and how he does. But I think this team, again, like I like to use high ceiling because I really do think they have a high ceiling too, like in the future if they go about it the right way, like getting the right pieces to help them build for the future, which I think that they can. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens. I mean, I don't know about the rest of you Bruins fans, but I'm tired of getting really, really close every year and not winning at all. Like, we want to see them win the cup. At the end of the day, that's what us fans want. And whatever that takes, I think is what's, hopefully they're going to do. And hopefully in the next couple of years, we can be celebrating that. But I know, I understand the frustration. I understand that, 2011 was a long time ago, the last time we saw them win a championship, and that can be frustrating. And so, there's a few things that they need to fix, but overall, I feel pretty good about them as a whole. Let's just try to write off last night's game. And yeah, sure, we can look back at other games and say, yeah, that was a bad game too. And they've had quite a few of those. But, overall, are there concerns there? Yes. But are they too drastic of concerns where I think that they would miss the playoffs this year? No, I really don't. And I mean, people are probably going to disagree with that too, because I've seen people on, Twitter freaking out about it. But honestly, like, this team puts it together. Like, last year we saw them struggling and then they put it together and looked really, really good down the stretch. So I'm not writing them off yet. I don't think any of you should either. I think they have time because it's a long season. I think they have time to improve some of these things. And I think that we might see them, start to really, really look like more of a threat down the stretch. So everybody try to be patient there. But I think they're on a good track. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. And, lastly, there's not really much to say here because they're literally in a lockout. But baseball is, this whole thing is so stupid. I'm sorry. I mean, I cannot grasp my head around the fact that like all of these millionaires and billionaires are arguing with each other over like just these crazy things. It's like, yeah, the players want more. The owners are just not giving in. And it's just like, how long is this going to go on for? Like, this feels so ridiculous to me. And like, I'm worried about it affecting spring training and the season. Like, there might not be a season. And I mean, I hate to say that because I don't want to go this whole, next year without baseball. But there's been no progress made. So unless there's an announcement from Jeff Passan or, Ken Rosenthal, somebody reliable, unless there's something comes out saying like, yeah, like they're starting to reach an agreement, then I'm not going to believe anything. I'm just going to sit here and wait because what else can we do? We have to. But overall, I mean, I like what the Red Sox have done so far. I mean, yes, bringing Jackie Bradley Jr. back was a shocker to all of us, myself included. People were mad because they traded Hunter Renfroe, which, yes, Hunter's bat is drastically better than JBJ's. We know that. But his defense isn't. I mean, he has a fantastic arm, but so does Jackie. He led the league in errors last year. Like, he made a lot of errors back there. And, playing in the outfield at Fenway is not easy. And Jackie knows how to do it. He's been here. I think his veteran presence will be good for this team. He's somebody who's been in Boston and is really well respected in the Boston community. So that's going to be a huge thing to me. So I think that's one of the biggest reasons why he's back here. He's not going to be an everyday player. He's probably going to be used as a fourth outfielder, because yes, team defense as a whole was one of the biggest things they needed to address. He'll be here for his defense, and I think he'll be here as a fourth outfielder, and he'll be here as a good leader to have in the locker room. Those are all the reasons why I think he's here. And second of all, obviously we know it was a salary dump by the Brewers. That part was obvious. But those two prospects that they got in the trade, that Alex Binelas kid is kind of nasty, to be honest with you. I mean, looking at his stats on Twitter, I mean, that kid could be really, really good in the future. And so I think, Chaim Bloom is really about prospects. I mean, he obviously he's addressing the team needs now, but he also wants to focus on building for the future. Because at the end of the day, if you have no prospects in your system, you won't be able to make big trades for big players to help you win championships in the present time either. So I think he was really attracted to those, those prospects. So we can't just look at this as a one-on-one trade. We have to look at the whole package. And yeah, I mean, he does plan on, getting another right-handed bat in the lineup. He said that. He said in his press conference right before the lockout started, he said, yeah, I want to get another right-handed bat in the lineup. I have a feeling he's going to get another starting pitcher. I don't think the starting rotation right now is how it's going to be come opening day. I mean, Rich Hill is fine, but he'll be like a back end starter. I think they want to get, somebody better than that. Do they trade for one? Maybe. Do they try to bring on Carlos Rodon? Maybe. I mean, there's interest. They have interest there. I mean, maybe they pull the plug on that. Really just depends. I don't think they'll overpay though. Bloom doesn't want to overpay for anybody. So I do think they bring in another starting pitcher for one. And I think that they bring in somebody else to play outfield. And I think whether that's Kyle Schwarber or that's Suzuki, somebody will come in, and then it'll be interesting to see how everybody gets moved around in the infield, because I wouldn't rule out the possibility of Carlos Correa or Trevor Story, because those two guys are both obviously big names still on the free agent market. And, if they sign one of them, for example, they can move Xander Bogaerts to second base, which is fine. I mean, obviously we love him at shortstop, but if he has to move to second base, then so be it. But also the fact that Xander more than likely is probably going to opt out of his contract at the end of this year. So that means you do need somebody to come in and be a backup. You need somebody to come in and fill that space for when he does opt out, if that does happen. And whether they don't address that this year and they wait, that's fine, because then they can address it next year. But I'm not ruling out any of these possibilities. None of us have been able to predict what Chaim Bloom's done so far, and I think James Paxton's another one. I think obviously he's injured and he won't be able to come back until, July, at least is what they're saying. And he's injury prone. I mean, the guy has not really pitched a full season healthy, so that part concerns me. But if he can stay healthy when he comes back, he can really, really contribute. This is somebody who can have really, really good stuff when he's healthy. And that's the thing. When he's healthy is the most important part of this. But if the guy can stay healthy, I mean, geez, that could be a really, really useful piece of the rotation. So I think that's why he did that one. It's also low risk, high reward. I mean, 10 million, it's kind of pushing it. It's a little bit. But with the second and third year club option, I mean, I think they're seeing him as more of a piece that can be used for 2023, personally, because he won't be here for, a good chunk of the 2021 season. So therefore, I think 2022 season rather. So therefore, I think he's more meant to be used as a 2023 piece if they exercise that club option. And, if this season doesn't go well for him, just don't exercise the club option. So that's why it's a low risk, high reward signing to me. And Chaim loves those low risk, high reward signings. Yeah, we know he's Mr. 1 year deal. That's all he does. He just does 1 year deals with people, but he keeps him on a short leash. He wants to see is this going to work for our team? And that's fine. He doesn't want to overpay for somebody. He's not the type of guy that's going to overpay for somebody like a Marcus Stroman or like a Carlos Correa even, or like anybody really. He's not going to overpay. And I think that's why you didn't see him go out and get somebody like a Max Scherzer or a Marcus Stroman. Like, he doesn't want to sign these players to these crazy deals and have them end up not working out. So he's Mr. 1 year deal, as we know, but a lot of these 1 year deals could pan out, and even, and I don't think it will be. I'm making that clear once again. I do not think this is going to be the opening day roster as is, or the opening day starting rotation either, for that matter. But say it is. Say they go into opening day and this is the starting rotation. You still have to sit here and look at it and say that Rich Hill and Michael Wacha are better than Garrett Richards and Martin Perez. How do you not? I mean, come on. So that's already an upgrade from them. But however, I still don't think he's done. He's already kind of indicated he's not. So I'm excited to kind of see who he brings in, to fill those shoes and take those spots and kind of, because then there's more flexibility. You can move Wacha to the bullpen. I think Tanner Houck gets moved to the bullpen. And Tanner Houck out of the bullpen, by the way, could be lethal. I mean, he has really good stuff. It was always, as we know, just a longevity issue with him. I mean, he doesn't really have a third pitch developed, so he still needs to work on that. But if you can get a solid 3 innings or so from him out of the bullpen, that's a huge, huge piece to have there. So I do think he goes and he gets somebody else. And I think, that's really going to help contribute to the starting rotation this year. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I mean, again, everybody has to wait until whenever this lockout ends, which who the hell knows when that's going to be. And, trust me, I'm frustrated too. So everyone just be patient with Chaim Bloom, trust the process. I mean, this team went to the ALCS last year and they weren't even supposed to be anywhere close to the playoffs. So we have to just trust what he's doing. He manages to find players that work, not the most glamorous players on paper, but the players that work in Boston. And that's what I think is cool about him. These players he signed last year in the offseason, like Hunter Renfroe and Kike Hernandez, those were underrated signings. Nobody thought they were going to be as good as they were, but they just worked here. It's about getting people who work here, because at the end of the day, the best team on paper isn't always the team that wins it all. It's the team that gets hot at the right time and has that chemistry. And I feel like the Red Sox have a special chemistry that a lot of other teams don't. So watch out for that. Trust Chaim's process. Trust that he's going to make moves, because he will. And we'll see what happens after this stupid lockout is over. And, we'll go from there. But that's all for my rant, really. I mean, I could say a lot more about these teams, but I know you all have things to do with the rest of your night, so I don't want to take up too much of your time. But again, back to what I said at the beginning. Thank you for the most amazing, amazing year of Boston balling. You people are phenomenal. I have the best listeners in the world, and I love doing this week to week. And I promise I'm going to continue to bring really good content to all of you. So I hope you have a fantastic rest of the week, a fantastic holiday season. I will catch you all next week. And thank you so much again. Have a good night, everybody.